Welcome to Design Santa Barbara. I'm Michael Korosh, and today we are in Santa Barbara Design Center with a very special guest. Ron Atwood is one of Santa Barbara's foremost experts on African art. He is the owner of Atwood African Masterworks and a good friend of the show. Great to have you here, Ron.
Nice to be here.
Tell me a little bit about your history and how African art came into your life.
That's a good question. It really began before I entered the Peace Corps. I was one of the Kennedy children, and it was a pretty woman who did it. It was Kim Novak. And some of you who are as old as I will remember the movie Bell, Book, and Candle. And Kim Novak played a ravishing witch with the Siamese cat on her shoulder. I saw that movie when it came out in 1958. That tells you how old I am. And I never got over it, because in it, there was a gallery of African art from New York used as a set. And I was as transfixed by the pieces in that movie set as I was by Kim Novak. That's actually where it started. And then I went in the Peace Corps, and that really excited my interest.
I didn't know that. Wonderful. Tell our viewers about the connection between Africa and fashion.
That's a good question. And that's why I brought up Kim Novak. She was quite a ravishing woman with a good sense of style.
I think you got impressed by her quite a lot.
I was quite impressed by her. I couldn't collect her, but at least I could get some of the African art. As far as the world of fashion goes, you might notice that I'm wearing something, a piece of jewelry. A lot of people who see this don't know what it is. They assume, because of the general shape, that it may be a Christian cross and that I might be a father, but I'm not. This is actually from the Dogon people, very ancient, in the country of Mali, one of the earliest African civilizations. And it has symbolic elements. There is a cross behind it, but the figure is not pinned to the cross. The figure is a kneeling older man, supported by two snakes on either side, which are totemic animals among the Dogon. And on the back is an alligator. All of those are totemic animals among the Dogon, who, by the way, are farmers. One of the things they farm, more jewelry and fashion, are peanuts.
Oh, interesting.
Peanuts, that's my pinky ring. It was one of the first pieces of African art I ever collected. Now, that tells you that there's an influence on jewelry and fashion. But what we should really see at this point is a larger picture of the influence of African art on the world of fashion. And for that, there's a special video that has been prepared for our viewers, which you are going to be able to see at this point. The music is like a ramp model, and the fashion models that you're going to see include Marlene Dietrich. You're going to see something that's based on that mask for her. You're going to see Naomi Campbell, and you're also going to see one of the first African Americans who appeared on the cover of Vogue magazine. So that's where we're going to start.
Excellent. Wonderful. Ron, that was fascinating. All right, I have another question for you.
Sure.
What is the most common question you're asked about African art?
The most common question I always get is, where is it from and how old is it? Both of them are difficult questions to answer because one, where is it from, does not necessarily involve a country. Africa was divided up during the colonial period, and the tribes that we actually name, like Hopi Indian, you don't say the Arizona Indians, you say the Hopi. And with African art, you say the Shi, the Senofo, the Ashanti. And when it comes to the world of fashion, something that viewers will like to know, you've got some right here. These are Showa cloth, actual African fabrics called African velvet. And you see them used frequently as accents. Another type that is based on African cloth are these pillows here, which use indigo dye, and you have them available here at the Design Center. And they make nice accent pieces in this world of fashion that we're talking about. Then finally, one more thing. Let's talk about furniture. There's a lot of influence in the fashion industry if you consider certainly design of furniture is a fashionable thing. And here you have a classic neck rest from Ethiopia. That's such a simple and beautiful accent in the world of design. Very fashionable. Especially fashionable in Paris are these stools, which come from the Ashanti people of Ghana. So you have the full breadth of fashion in fabrics, in jewelry, in what people wear, and that's the whole world of African fashion, which I hope that viewers have now enjoyed.
Quite amazing. When we get back, Ron and I will talk about African art and avant-garde. Stay tuned. There is more Design Santa Barbara after the break. In this edition of Michael's Minutes, let's talk about sofas, be it classical, transitional, or modern. The style you choose should be based on your personal preference. Once you have a style, selecting the right size and shape for your space is critical. We offer love seats, sofas, sectionals, and sectionals with a return. The next step is selecting the right fabric for your lifestyle. You can choose from casual to durable, even washable. Last but not least comes the comfort of your sofa. We carry many materials like high-density foam that you can cover in polyester, down, or premium angel hair for maximum comfort and support. I invite you to come to Santa Barbara Design Center at 410 Olive Street and select your dream sofa. Welcome back to Design Santa Barbara. Today I'm talking with African art expert Ron Atwood. Ron, thank you for being here again. Tell me about Africa and avant-garde.
Well, it raises a big question that's better understood, frankly, in Europe because that's where it's all started, in Paris, during the early part of the 20th century. The early avant-garde artists, as they were called, and we know them because they've now become famous, Picasso, Matisse, Modigliani, Giacometti. These were some of the big names. Not then, they mostly lived in poverty, but now their things sell for millions of dollars. What's interesting, Michael, is that without African art, and this is what people don't know, that never would have happened. African art was catalytic in influencing the styles of those artists. And we've got some of the pieces in front of us right now that in fact reflect that stylistic influence. Let's start with the most widely known person. Most people know that African art influenced Picasso.
Picasso.
That's right. And what you have down here is exactly the kind of piece that in fact did influence him when he went to the Trocadero Museum in Paris, the Musée de l'Homme, and he saw pieces like this in front of him in a case. And this face was an inspiration to Cubism. And Picasso produced the Demoiselles d'Avignon, 5 female figures, 3 of them with African kinds of faces. And this is where that inspiration came from to Picasso. This has 2 sides. This is what's sometimes called the male side, and interestingly, it is a Janus figure. And on the back is actually the kind of piece that Picasso was able to see at the Trocadero Museum.
Interesting.
And was the inspirations for so much of his work. Okay, we started with Picasso, but Picasso, before he got started, knowing nothing of African art, was encouraged by a friend of his who was also a competitor, Henri Matisse, and a kind of piece that influenced Matisse and inspired his creation of a portrait he did of his own wife, showing her with a white face. And what inspired Matisse were very well-known masks at that time that came from Africa, the Punu masks from Gabon, one of the most influential tribes or peoples on the avant-garde movement, especially appealing to Parisians who love beauty. What you don't see here, only remnants remaining, are the white that was originally all over that whole mask. White. What did it represent? Actually, the ghost of a beautiful young maiden. And they were danced, believe it or not, on stilts. A dancer with costume flowing down 10 feet above the crowd, and this white mask, the ghost of a beautiful woman. All right?
Amazing.
That's one thing. Now, what about Cubism? I mentioned Cubism. This is naturalism, really. Cubism is something different. You notice that this particular mask in the center has 2 things going for it. One, by the way, it is an elephant mask, and some of you may realize that when you see what's on the side. That is an elephant's trunk, but look at that cutting angle there. That's the angularity of Cubism. It's combined in African art with something very beatific. Look at the face. That's a Valentine's heart-shaped face, Michael. And that heart-shaped simplicity, the beauty of the heart-shaped face, was one of the most important influences on all of the avant-garde artists. Many of them used that simple, heart-shaped face. What's another tribe that did it? This happens to be from Gabon, from the Kwele people. Here you have the Punu, now you have the Kwele. These tribes came from the region of what was then Gabon, one of the most influential areas on the avant-garde movement. And you will see that there's a similarity between this mask and its heart-shaped face and the one down there and its heart-shaped face. That is also a Kwele mask from Gabon. And there you see more of the curves, curvilineal, but this face is the same as that. And that identifies the tribe. That's how we identify African art, by tribe. Or you might say groups of people, because sometimes when we say the word tribe, we have too primitive an idea. There are 20 million approximately Yoruba people, one of the biggest tribes in Nigeria and overlapping into Benin. So when we say tribe, we're talking about something the size of New York or more, okay? So we've got to be a little careful when we use those kinds of words. I'm going to close this by pointing out the 2 pieces that are on either side there. These are tall cenotaph. Here's the woman, there's the man. And these, with that tall modeled finish, some of the viewers will realize the person being influenced was Giacometti.
Giacometti.
And you will see Giacometti's sculpture, the famous tall, sinuous statues with this mottled iron surface.
Yes.
Here you have them and the influence itself on the actual African pieces. One of the things that we might want to know here in terms of the purpose is that this is the primordial couple. This is Adam, this is Eve. And in African art, Eve, if we put them next to each other, is actually a little taller. There is the honoring of the importance. Yeah, thanks, Michael. The honoring of the importance of women is shown symbolically in the difference, which is slight but real. She is taller.
She's taller.
That's part of the authentication of a genuine primordial couple from the Senefo people. You don't forget, if you're the sculptor, to make the woman a little taller, and I'm sure that female viewers will enjoy that fact. So we honor the female in African art. This is something that a lot of people don't realize, that the female is present even in patriarchal societies. And we need to give more honor to that in our own society.
Absolutely.
That importance.
It's fascinating, fascinating. So there's one more thing I want to ask you. It is, what is the most important thing about African art that you want people to know that most don't know?
Exactly. What people mostly don't realize is that African art, as I just was alluding here and showed you with that example of the quelle, is classical art. It's not folk art. The most important thing is to realize you're dealing with classicism in African art. That's not the normal concept. Oh, I thought it was just folk art. So that's the most important thing, is to give dignity to peoples who are often called primitive, when in fact they are not.
They're not.
Their civilizations go back as early as any other. We all came from Africa. In fact, we are all brothers and sisters under the skin, and we are African. That's where we came from.
Wonderful. Could not have said it better. Thank you.
Thanks.
Stay tuned. After the break, Ron and I will be talking about something that's always interesting, the world of auction, and how African art is bought and sold.
Welcome to Rugs and More. We provide the West Coast with the most comprehensive collection of new, oriental, and antique rugs. Rugs are solid art investments and often become cherished family treasures. Our limitless inventory will warm up your home. Exotic or traditional, tribal or modern, our rugs weave stories through intricate patterns, compelling colors, and touchable materials. #1 in Santa Barbara for over 20 years. Visit us today at Rugs and More, 410 Olive Street in Santa Barbara.
Welcome back. We are joined today by my friend Ron Atwood, one of Santa Barbara's top experts in the field of African art. And now he's going to tell us about how African art is bought and sold, including the world of high-end art auctions. Before we get into the topic of auctions, can you tell us more about Atwood African Masterworks?
I can. It is a private art dealership that I now operate. I used to do shows, New York, Santa Fe, Los Angeles, and so forth, but now I deal just privately, have a few exclusive clients, and I'm looking forward to getting a few more. And we're going to be seeing some of the things that have been sold at auction and what kind of prices can be anticipated for different levels of African art.
Wonderful. So, now we are at that point, so tell us, what is the world of African auctions look like?
It looks in many ways like so much of the rest of the world art at auction market. Sadly, instead of coming from the heart, and now I'm going to be personal in my opinion, many people have gotten into the art world as an investment. Banks lend money on particular famous pieces and artists. The market, in effect, has gone crazy. Some of that craziness is also affecting the world of African art. We are seeing things escalate in price. For example, let's take a similar mask to the Punu, which I showed earlier. And here is a Sotheby's auction of a black-faced Punu. They're quite rare. That piece sold for over $1 million. Okay, there it is. Sotheby's and Christie's really lead the auction world at the high end. That's where the blue chip players play and like to vie against one another, almost being proud of escalating the price into crazy stratospheric levels. You don't have to fall prey to that kind of investment thinking. What you ought to be doing in African art, or any art, including your own home and how you decorate it, is coming from what you love personally. And by doing so, and not demanding that you're buying a piece that was from a famous person, like Helena Rubinstein, or Tristan Tzara, who had a Punu mask. How about buying one that has not been discovered yet? Ah, now that's a step ahead. So I'm giving you what I really consider are proper expert tips. Don't always go for the celebrated, because you're going to pay for the celebrity. You're going to be buying the who as much as the what. You want to buy something, hopefully, that is what for you, that stimulates you, gets your adrenaline going. How about authenticating? That's something very important. So I brought two of the last pieces in this segment of the show to show you how we authenticate early African art, what we might look for. And these are the two, side by side. What you are seeing are, first, a Hemba piece from, thanks Michael, if you could slide that one toward me, that'd be great. Let's look at the big one, the one that is complete. You can see that this one has been eaten away. It turns out it's been eaten away by termites underneath. These were placed on the ground. This is a statue of an important chief, a king, if you will, with a special hairdo.
Oh, there you go.
There it is on the back. And there you see this cross-shaped hairdo, which is emblematic of the Hemba people, okay? It's classic again, folks. This is art that follows certain traditions and you expect certain forms. That's one of them, the cross hairdo. This is a complete body with a little cloth around the bottom. But look at what happened on the bottom of the piece.
Oh, wow. A termites ate that?
It's eaten away, begun already to be eaten by termites that go up from the center of the wood all the way to the top. What survives, if you're lucky, is still the head. What's the difference in buying a fragment and buying a whole sculpture? There's a difference in value. That's what I'm pointing out. But not to be put off by the fact that one of them has been eaten away, like a piece you got from me, Michael.
Oh, it's my favorite African art.
A piece you got from me that's a fragment. It didn't put you off because you liked the antiquity, which was right there in the fact that it had been eaten away a bit from age. And that's what we have here. So what's the difference, you might say, in pricing? A fragment like this could go for around $3,000. That's, again, modest, with a beautiful, beautiful head. It's got the dignity that one's got.
It's beautiful.
And in many ways, it's quite lovely. So don't be put off by fragments, would be my advice. And finally, if you want to step into a whole figure, what's going on here also in terms of authentication, and this is what people often don't anticipate. Europeans tended to like things that were smooth and black and polished, and the dealers slicked them up. They waxed them. You don't have to do that. In fact, it may be a detriment because you're really interfering with what went on. It's not proper conservation. You're decking it out for a buyer. You're schnookering them in many ways. You're making it more beautiful for their eyes.
True.
But the original like this, which is what has been untouched here, will turn off some European buyers because it's not been interfered with. Nobody polished this piece, and it was actually sacrificially anointed for magical purposes. That's why you see the white kale and clay that we saw on the Punu mask, which has a spiritual value. Here you see remnants of it, and it's encrusted. It's literally crusted up, and it's even got some oil kind of oozing down. That's all part of the original patina. And if you really know your African art, that's what you're going to go for, that kind of authentication. But yes, it takes a long time of exposure. A piece like this, sell for anywhere from $25,000 to $35,000. Yes, more than a fragment.
But a complete piece.
Almost 10 times more. But now you see how we authenticate and what we in fact can embrace without fear. It's not as if African art isn't approachable. It's approachable. And I hope I can help people with that.
Wonderful. Ron, it's always a pleasure having you here. Thank you so much for lending your expertise to our show, and we look forward to having you back.